Endurance racing is back. We're going to take you through everything that you need to know going into the Sahlen's 6 hours of the Glen. Buckle up, because we're about to go off in the S's. Well, first of all, we are going to start off with the DPIs. And once again, the DPI category will see BOP adjustments heading into the Glen. The Acura this time will see a 10 kilogram weight increase to 930 kilograms, while the Cadillac is given its fourth straight race with an adjustment as well, this time in the form of a 15 kilogram decrease down to 945 kilograms. So a little bit of a benefit there for the Cadillac. Both the Action Express Racing and JDC Miller Motorsports cars have opted to go with a 3-driver lineup for the 6 hours, which will see the return of Mike Conway into the number 31, as well as Loic Duval in the number 5 Cadillac. And this, of course, is in addition to the 3-car entry of that number 48 Action Express Racing car of Mike Rockenfeller, Kamui Kobayashi, and Jimmy Johnson. In LMP2, there is also a slight BOP adjustment that's coming to the Oreca, with just a very slight change in the rear wing assembly and rear wing flap angle to all of those cars. All of the cars that are on the grid are going to be Orecas, so it's going to affect them all equally. In other related LMP2 news, United Autosport will not be on the grid for the 6 hours of the Glen. This is due to bronze-rated driver Jim McGuire being unable to attend due to scheduled back surgery. Due to the limited availability of bronze drivers this weekend, they were unable to find a suitable replacement that was capable of handling that LMP2. This is not expected to impact their entry in the season-ending Motul Petit Le Mans, as Jim McGuire is expected to have recovered by that time. In LMP3, rising open-wheel driver Nolan Siegel will join the JR3 racing lineup for the 6 hours of the Glen with Garrett Grist and Ari Balo. The Road to Indy driver previously competed at the Rolex 24 Hours with Molnar Motorsports in LMP3, picking up a 6th place finish. He's also previously competed in 4 IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge races in the Grand Sport division, including last year's race at the Glen. Team owner Billy Glavin said after a test this week that he will fit right in with the team. He has a great attitude and he was comfortable in the car. Also mentioned he has good pace and they're looking forward to seeing what he can do in that LMP3 machine. Returning to the grid for the 6 hours of the Glen is Gtd Pro with some BOP adjustments. Of course, these BOP adjustments do also apply to the GTD category, and it's going to see a 10 kilogram increase in the minimum weight for the Ferrari, along with a 3-liter increase in fuel capacity, while the Aston Martin gets 1 extra liter of fuel capacity and the McLaren loses 2 liters. So not really anything crazy going on here in the GTD category. The 10 kilogram increase for the Ferrari is significant, along with the fuel increase for them. But things are pretty good in the GTD division. It looks like right now should be looking forward to what should be another good race. Also in GTD Pro, as expected, we mentioned it, Jack Hawksworth is going to be absent from the number 14 Lexus for the second straight event. Of course, after that accident that he had about a month ago, and as we mentioned in last episode, the Risi Competizione Ferrari of David Rigon and Daniel Serra is on the official entry list for the Glen. Moving on to regular GTD, it is NT Esport that is back on the grid for the Glen. They have confirmed their Lamborghini entry for Jaden Conwright, Don Yout, and Marco Holzer, they were forced to miss races this year due to a transporter issue for Long Beach, and then a couple of other issues where the waters are a little bit muddy on for the last couple of races. But regardless, they have returned to the grid for the Glen. There's no indication that they're going to be missing any other planned races. Of course, this team had their breakout performance here last year in the 6 hours of the Glen when they were racing in an Audi, and they finished just shy of the podium in 4th. So let's see if they can repeat that and build on that great performance that they had here last year. Also, some additions to what is the highest number of entries on this GTD grid since Sebring. It will feature the number 21 AF Corsa and number 47 Centaur Racing Ferraris, the Crucial Motorsports and Inception Racing McLarens, the number 42, of course, NTE Esport Lamborghini, the Gradient Racing Acura, the number 99 Hardpoint Porsche, as well as the Magnus Racing's Aston Martin. Also, in addition to the grid, Windward Racing is adding a second Mercedes to the grid, with the only confirmed driver being Alec Udell. Of course, in GTD, you have to have 3 drivers for the 6 hours of the Glen. That's mandatory. So there are 2 yet to be confirmed drivers for that ride. Once we have confirmation of that, I'm sure we'll post a tweet out on Twitter or retweet that. So keep your eyes peeled there. We're at Off in the S's on Twitter. In IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge news, well, they are back this weekend for the 6 hours of the Glen. They return for the Tioga Downs Casino Resort 120. They'll have 44 total entries, just another really healthy grid in the Michelin Pilot Challenge. You do love to see it. They're going to have 28 in that Grand Sport category and 16 in TCR. The championship points leaders for Grand Sport, you have Trent Hidman and Alan Bjornsson. In the Aston Martin entry, they lead by 130 points over there. Also leading by 130 points is Michael Lewis and Taylor Hagler in that Hyundai entry. As I mentioned, they lead by 130 points. So these championships are not decided by any stretch of the imagination. There's still a lot of racing to go. We're at like the halfway point in the season for these guys. But it's you're gonna have to keep an eye on these. These could get out of hand quickly if there's some more good results that come for these championship points leaders. So keep an eye out for that as we head into the weekend. Also, in another bit of great support series news here for IMSA, out of this time the IMSA Prototype Challenge, IMSA has proposed to replace the IMSA Prototype Challenge with a combination of LMP3 and GT4 machinery for 2023. Now, with this, there is a potential change to the race format as well that could see them move from their current 90-minute format to 2 45-minute sprint races. It would also feature a new name for the series, which there's been no indication of what that could be yet. But there was some initial reaction that came out from some of the teams that compete, not only in this series, but also in the Grand Sport division of the Michelin Pilot Challenge, and then also, of course, in WeatherTech. And it was mixed. There are some mixed reactions. We have Bill Riley, who fields teams in both LMP3 and GT4 competition. He really liked the thought. He liked the thought of reduced costs, with there not being the need for pit stops and not being the need for an entire pit crew that needs to come out for these. Moving from that 90-minute race format to these 2 45-minute sprint races, it means if you're making a pit stop, it's because you have a problem. You're not going to have to make a scheduled tire change, scheduled fuel, anything like that. On the flip side, Billy Glavin, the team principal for JR3, who we talked about just a moment ago, he really likes the idea of adding the GT4 cars to the format. That was kind of the consensus across the board, is like, adding another division where there's multi-class racing and adding another race over the weekend where there's multi-class racing is good. Like that was the overall consensus. Everything that I saw, anyways, was indicating that this was a good thing. But he was looking at it from a slightly different perspective. He was not as optimistic about the format change, specifically in the change from 90-minute races to 45-minute races. In terms of the, he had this to say. In terms of the sprint format, the LMP3 was built as an endurance car, and the current Prototype Challenge format at 90 minutes isn't even really long enough to be an endurance race series, as there is just the one pit stop that happens, which features a driver change, fuel, and tires. He would go on to say there's not much strategy in these 90-minute races, but you still need all the pit crew and equipment to complete, of course, these pit stops, which increases the budget. It also now puts the LMP3s in direct competition with other sprint-only races such as the MX-5 Cup, the Carrera Cup, Super Trofeo, and the Ferrari Challenge, but it doesn't feature the same manufacturer support and pedigree of some of the drivers. Driver Sean Creech, who races in IMSA and also or in the WeatherTech Championship and has also dabbled in Prototype Challenge. He agreed, and he told Sportscar 365 that the sprint format with no pit stops takes away that competitive aspect, with the crews doing their job and the drivers doing theirs. And then another good point that was raised in all of this is that bronze-rated drivers are often the drivers that are footing the bill for lots of these race weekends. They're oftentimes bringing lots of the sponsorship money in, and they're getting minimal drive time out of this. So how does this change with this format switch? There's already been sort of a pull away from the Prototype Challenge for these LMP3 drivers when they can just go run WeatherTech. And they can go run with the big boys. So going to be interesting to see how they handle some of these challenges, what that means. Personally, I think that this is a great move. I love the idea of the GT4s and the LMP3s coming together. I think in my head for a little while, I thought it would be great to move these P3s maybe with the Michelin Pilot Challenge. The more I've thought about that is, why go and mix up the Michelin Pilot Challenge? Like, they got a really good thing going right now, it seems. So why go and sort of add this into it? Whereas adding the GT4s with the LMP3s, there's a nice speed differential between them. And I think that this could really offer a great stepping stone for prototype drivers who want to be able to move up in multi-class racing and take that step up to the WeatherTech Championship, maybe go overseas and compete in say your Le Mans, and get some real good experience under their belt without it being in an extreme high pressure situation. So we'll see what IMSA decides to do with this. They said nothing's been finalized, and anything will be finalized essentially when the next season schedule gets released at Road America in August. So it's one of the things we're going to have to keep our eyes and ears open for. I'm sure there's going to be some more news that maybe leaks out before that, but exciting news for the Prototype Challenge, and exciting to see where that goes. In terms of MX-5 Cup, they also return this weekend for rounds 7 and 8. Jared Thomas leads that championship right now with 760 points. He has a 95-point lead on Sahlen Roland. But again, we're about at the halfway point in the season. Lots of stuff can still happen. And anything can and will happen, especially in this MX-5 Cup. It's going to be more great racing at the Glen. There's no doubt about that. So you're not going to want to miss any of those MX-5 Cup races. If you're still here, how about hitting that like and subscribe button? Or, if you really want to go the extra mile, you can also support us on Patreon. Link to that can be down in the show notes. We're going to have all sorts of coverage here coming from Watkins Glen. We're also going to be a CTMP next weekend or the weekend after that. So there's plenty of action to come, and you aren't going to want to miss any of it. Alrighty, let's get into the Watkins Glen International Circuit. One of my, if not my favorite North American circuit, or worldwide circuit for that matter. Watkins Glen has such a long and storied history in North American racing, and at the end of the day, it is one of the most famous circuits in North America. It is located in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region, and Watkins Glen began its rich racing history back in 1948, when Cameron Argetsinger planned the first Watkins Glen Grand Prix that was held on a 6.6 mile or 10.6 kilometer street circuit. 15 cars took place in the 8-lap race that would go on to be used for 5 years. In 1953, though, marked a big change for the course as it was shortened to 4.6 miles or 7.4 kilometers, with the big subtraction from the circuit, the portion that ran through the village of Watkins Glen. Unfortunately, there had been various incidents and crashes that took place through the village in the previous iterations of the race, ultimately culminating with the death of a young child, and this prompted the course to no longer be run through the village itself. The course's history would be short-lived, though, as there was ultimately concerns that surfaced over the lack of runoff space on the street circuit, as well as visibility through the various rural sections of the course. Very windy, and there's some great pictures that you can find on the internet and articles on the old circuit. But this ultimately led to the purpose-built circuit and the construction of that, and ultimately the track that we have today. The circuit today is based on some surrounding area roads that they raced on the original race circuit. And then in 1971, the track was expanded to also have the boot portion that, of course, IMSA uses today. Today, the 11-turn 3.4 mile, 5.47 kilometer circuit features 115 feet of elevation change. And in addition to the 6 hours of the Glen, which the track has hosted since 1968, with the exception of 81 to 83, when the track was actually bankrupt, and during 2020 for COVID, the track has also hosted the Formula One United States Grand Prix, and also continues to be a very popular stop on the NASCAR calendar that takes place at the end of August. An interesting note on the track, and one thing that you'll notice when you look at the track map, is it is 11 corners. But you will also notice that the bus stop, which can also be referred to as the inner loop, those corners don't count on the on the track. So I was unable to really find a good reason why this was the case. I read some things that they wanted to keep the NASCAR layout, which does not include the boot, as well as the boot version to have the same number of corners at 11, but I'll try and do some digging this weekend while I'm there, and I'll see if anybody actually knows why this is the case. If anybody does know the reason, hit me up on Twitter at Off in the S's, or shoot a comment down there in the YouTube comments. But this year we will see 49 cars take to the track, and they will be spread across 5 categories, with DPI and LMP2 having 7 entries each, LMP3 featuring a rather large 11-car grid, Gtd Pro will see 7 entries, and regular GTD, as mentioned, will have their largest grid since Sebring with 17 registered entries. There were 200 laps turned by the victorious Mazda Motorsports DPI of Ollie Jarvis, Harry Tinknell, and Jonathan Bomarito in the 2021 Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen. Bomarito is going for 3 wins in a row here after winning the previous 2 iterations of this race with Mazda. He is, of course, running this year in the number 11 PR1 Matheson Motorsports LMP2 entry. Other 2021 class winners are the number 11 Win Auto Sport car of Stephen Thomas, Tristan Nunez, and Thomas Merrill, who took the honors in LMP2. Meanwhile, in LMP3, it was the number 74 entry, of Riley Motorsports that was driven by Gar Robinson, Scott Andrews, and Felipe Fraga. And of course, on the GTLM side, the last GTLM 6 Hours of the Glen, it was the number 3 Corvette of Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor. And finally, to wrap it up, it was the number 96 Turner Motorsports BMW of Bill Oberlin, Robbie Foley, and Addison Reed. Well, there's lots to keep an eye out for here at Watkins Glen. It's a fairly quick track with lap times from the different classes ranging from the 1-minute 30s for the DPIs down to the 145s for the GTDs. There's a really good mixture of high, medium, and low speed corners throughout this circuit, and it really provides drivers with a proper challenge. There are some corners that have a very generous amount of runoff, but then there's also portions of the track, specifically in the boot, that if you make a little bit of a mistake and go a little bit wide or grab a little bit too much of the curb, you're going to pay for it. So there's going to be lots to keep an eye out for over the course of the entire circuit here. There are great passing opportunities going into turn 1 as well, into the inner loop or the bus stop chicane. You'll see lots of drivers try and outbrake their competition going into those corners. And oftentimes, if they get a little bit too enthusiastic, you'll find them cutting through either the bus stop grass or have to take the obstacle course, if you could call it that, through if they have to go straight on through that chicane. As well, keep an eye out in turn 8 of the heel of the boot. Another great passing opportunity there. This is the shortest race on the Michelin Endurance Cup calendar, and it will require, of course, the patience that you always need to go endurance racing, but it's also going to require a flawless and quick performance from drivers if they wish to be on the podium. The weather for the weekend does look to be nice and just consistently warm across the board. Saturday and Sunday we'll see highs of 82 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees Celsius with a 40% chance of showers on both of those days. So we might see a little bit of rain mixed in there, but not expected to be a fully wet race. And then finally, what can you expect from Off in the S's at the Glen? This is going to be the first IMSA race of 2022 that I will be attending. Going to be camping at the braking zone for the bus stop, so you can keep an eye out for us around there. I mean, if you're going to be at the track, or if you are going to be at the track, we'll be wandering around over the course of the weekend. So if you see me, come up and say hi. But otherwise, I'll be posting some short daily updates over on the Off in the S's YouTube channel, and a few daily updates as well on the Patreon. Links to those can be found in the show notes. And it is time to go into some points standings here, starting off with the DPIs, and the number 60 Meyer Shank Racing leads DPIs with 2,027 points. They have just a 10-point advantage on the Konica Minolta Acura. 96 points back of the leader is the 02 Chip Ganassi Racing entry, with the 01 143 points back. And rounding at the top 5, the JDC Miller Motorsports Cadillac find themselves 159 points behind the leading Acura. In LMP2, it is the 52 PR1 Matheson Motorsports entry. They have just a 10-point lead over the 81 Dragon Speed and a 19-point lead over the number 18 Era Motorsports Oricas. In fourth place, another PR1 Matheson Motorsport entry, this time the number 11, and rounding out the top 5. The top 5 separated by just 34 points. It is anyone's game here for these LMP2s, and it is the number 8 Tower Motorsport entry. In LMP3, the JR3 Racing entry has 688 points. They are 27 points ahead of the Core Autosport entry. Sean Creech Motorsport and number 33 find themselves in third, with the number 38 Performance Tech Ligier in fourth. And rounding out the top 5, the number 74 Riley Motorsports entry, of course, last year's winners. They find themselves in that 5th position. The top 5 separated by 105 points. So again, yet another close division here. In GTD Pro, it is the number 9 Pfaff Motorsports Porsche that leads by 50 points over the number 3 Corvette. Number 14 Vasser Sullivan entry is 80 points behind the leaders. And then there's a big gap here back to the number 79 WeatherTech Racing entry. They are 233 points back, just 6 points ahead of the 5th place number 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. And finally, to wrap things up in regular GTD, it is number 32 Gilbert Korthoff Mercedes that leads the way with 1,520 points. They're 34 points ahead of Wright Motorsports in that number 16 Porsche. The number 96 Turner Motorsport BMW, which is really coming on strong lately, they find themselves just 129 points back. With the number 12, Vasser Sullivan Racing Lexus in 4th place, 206 points back. And then finally, rounding out the top 5, another Aston Martin, the number 27 Heart of Racing Aston, who is 231 points back. One other thing to note about the point standings, there are also Michelin Endurance Cup Series points on the line. They will be handed out at the 3-hour mark and at race end. There is a ton of IMSA racing that's going to be on this weekend. We'll go through that in just a moment, but there's also a little bit of other racing going on too. So for starters, Formula 1 and IndyCar, they have the weekend off. But there is NASCAR for you. The Truck Series are at Nashville Superspeedway for the Rackley Roofing 200. That goes Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Xfinity also in Nashville. They're there for the Tennessee Lottery 250. That goes Saturday at 3:30 Eastern Time. And then on Sunday, the Cup Series is also in Nashville for the Ally 400. That goes Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. But let's jump into the IMSA racing that's on this weekend. And let me tell you, there's a lot of it going on here in Watkins Glen. Starting off on Friday. Thursday, just a practice day, nothing too exciting. It's not until Friday where you start kicking off with the races here. We are going to have 3 races on Friday that are all going to be on IMSA TV. At 12:15 Eastern Time, it is race 1 for the Mazda Idemitsu MX-5 Cup. That is followed by, at 1:20, race 1 for the Porsche Carrera Cup North America, presented by the Cayman Islands. And then immediately following that is the first race for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. So a great early to mid-afternoon of racing on Friday. That's going to carry over into Saturday, where we will have race 2 of the Mazda Idemitsu MX-5 Cup. That goes at 9:55 a.m. Eastern Time, followed right after by the race 2 of the Porsche Carrera Cup, and then followed again right after that by race 2 for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series. Right after that, we have WeatherTech Championship qualifying. That goes at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Time. And then there's a slight little break after that before we get into the 2-hour-long Tioga Downs Casino Resort 120 for the Michelin Pilot Challenge Series. So a long day of racing here, starting again just slightly before 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Of course, all of these races can be found on IMSA TV. That Michelin Pilot Challenge race can also be viewed on Peacock. And then Sunday, I mean, the day we've all been waiting for, 6 hours of the Glen Day, that gets underway at 10:35 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find that on IMSA TV, and you can also find that on Peacock. Also, if you have USA, you can catch the final 3 hours of the race from 2 until about 5 o'clock on USA. Are you sitting here wondering, what happened last time in Detroit? Well, don't worry. We have all the coverage from the last race at Belle Isle right here. Until the next one, though, I hope everyone has a great race weekend and doesn't go off in the S's.